Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to another episode of the Talk Room series of podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and great to be here once again.
So, I'm Wendy, and today we're diving into one of the most challenging yet crucial questions we encounter in relationship counseling: trust after infidelity. Is rebuilding possible? So, we'll be exploring how couples can navigate this devastating blow to their relationship and whether it's truly possible to rebuild what feels irreparably broken. For those joining us for the first time, I would like to introduce my co presenter, Ian. Ian is a senior accredited National Counselling and Psychotherapy Society member and the founder of Hope Therapy and Counselling Services. Hope is a counselling organisation offering support throughout the UK for relationships, infidelity recovery, and a wide range of other concerns.
Thank you, Wendy, and let me return the favour to you by introducing yourself, Wendy. Wendy is a highly experienced CBT psychotherapist. She's been involved in the field of mental health and well-being for over 35 years now, and has particular expertise in working with relationship dynamics and infidelity counselling, along with a wide range of other subject areas as well.
Thank you, Ian. And infidelity is something that touches so many relationships, yet it remains one of the most difficult topics for couples to navigate. So, what brings couples to your door when they're facing this crisis, Ian?
I think when facing this particular crisis, Wendy, it's usually the raw pain that people are feeling. Um, Often discovery will have happened, and will have happened quite recently, very often. Sometimes within days or weeks of that, and one partner feels completely shattered. They're questioning everything they believed about the relationship, whilst the other is often dealing with guilt, with shame, and often their own confusion about how they got to that point. Um, they come asking that exact question, is this salvageable?
And of course, that is a really valid question, isn't it? The betrayal of infidelity, it doesn't just break the trust, it can shatter a person's sense of reality, their own self-worth, and their belief in the future they thought they were building together.
Absolutely. And what people don't always realize is that infidelity isn't just about the physical or the emotional act itself. It's about the lies. It's about the deception, the double life that often accompanies it. Partners partners are grieving not just the betrayal, but the relationship they thought they had.
Absolutely, Ian, absolutely. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. Is it actually possible to rebuild trust after infidelity?
So, in our experience, the honest answer to that is it depends. Not every relationship can or should survive infidelity, but for those couples who are both genuinely committed to the hard work involved, yes, it's possible to rebuild trust. However, and this is really crucial, it won't be the same trust. It won't be in exactly the same form that they had once before.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a really important distinction, Ian. Um, and could you please explain what you mean by not the same trust?
Yeah, so the naive trust, that innocent belief that this could never happen. That's gone. That's gone forever. What can develop instead is what we might call earned trust or informed trust. And often that can actually be stronger because it's built on genuine understanding, it's built on transparency, and it's built on a conscious choice rather than just an assumption. But it's different.
Okay, interesting. So, from a therapeutic perspective, I often see couples who think rebuilding trust means getting back to how things were. But recovery from infidelity isn't about returning to the past, is it? It's about building something entirely new together. Is that how you see it?
Exactly that, exactly that. And it's this process that can take the time. We're sometimes talking about years. We're certainly not talking about days or weeks or months. There's often an expectation that if the unfaithful partner is truly sorry and commits to change, trust should just simply return relatively quickly. But the injured partner's brain has literally been rewired as a result of a traumatic event, the infidelity that has taken place. That takes time to work with.
Yeah, that's so important for people to understand. The discovery of infidelity often creates symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. I believe the betrayed partner might experience flashbacks, hypervigilance, difficulty sleeping, and obviously intrusive thoughts. And it's important to say that this isn't weakness, it's a normal response to relationship trauma.
Absolutely that. And during that period, the unfaithful partner needs to understand that their partner's reactions, the questioning, the need for reassurance, the emotional volatility that may exist, these are natural symptoms of that trauma. They're not personal attacks on you. They are a normal, understandable response to the trauma of the infidelity that they've experienced.
Very interesting, very interesting. Okay, and so I'm wondering what are the non-negotiable foundations that need to be in place for trust to have any chance of being rebuilt?
Well, again, from our experience, the first and foremost, the affair must end completely. It must be completely over. The physical aspect of it, the emotional aspect of it must be completely over. No contact, no enduring friendship, no gradual wind down. If we're really talking about rebuilding some form of trust, if there's any ongoing connection with the affair partner, um, then in our experience, rebuilding trust can be extremely challenging, if not impossible.
Yeah, I understand that. And I'm assuming that includes digital connections too, such as social media or emailing or messaging apps. In today's connected world, no contact means comprehensive no contact, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely that, Wendy. And secondly, there needs to be honest disclosure, full disclosure. The unfaithful partner must be willing to answer questions, uncomfortable questions, painful questions, but to answer them in an honest way. Um, what we might refer to as trickle truth. So revealing little bits of information bit by bit over a period of time, that can be absolutely devastating to recovery.
Absolutely, absolutely. And from my experience, Ian, the problem is couples often struggle with how much detail to share. The betrayed partner usually wants to know everything, while the unfaithful partner wants to protect them from the painful details. So how do you navigate this difficulty?
Yeah, and that's an excellent question, and it's a question that comes into therapy on a very regular basis, and I think it's about finding the balance between the betrayed partner's need to understand what's happened and avoiding gratuitous details that serve no healing purpose. And generally, the betrayed partner has the right to know the timeline, the extent of the relationship, and whether there were other betrayals. But maybe really detailed descriptions of intimate moments, maybe we would say that they rarely have a really healing benefit attached to them.
Okay, yes, that's really good. And I'm very clear there about what helps. That's really useful, isn't it? And I'm thinking the third foundation, I always emphasize genuine remorse versus just regret. Regret is I would determine that as I'm sorry I got caught,
Mhm.
or I'm sorry this is causing problems. Remorse is the understanding of the depth of pain caused and also taking full responsibility without excuses. What do you think about that, Ian?
I think that, again, from our experience, that's absolutely crucial. True remorse shows up in consistent actions over a period of time. It's not just words. It means the unfaithful partner doing the work to understand why the infidelity happened and what changes they need to make to ensure it doesn't ever happen again, even when that's a really uncomfortable process to go through.
Absolutely, yeah, okay. And I'm assuming also what you think is transparency needs to become the new normal. And that might mean accounting for your whereabouts, being available for communication throughout the day. The problem is some people might see this as controlling, but initially it's necessary, what I would call scaffolding for rebuilding safety. What do you think about that, Ian?
The way that I often think about it is that it's temporary intensive care for the relationship. And as trust slowly rebuilds, some of those measures can potentially be gradually relaxed. But in the early stages, the injured partner's need for reassurance and just that proof of commitment is entirely understandable. And we said right at the start, these are challenging things that take us to a really uncomfortable place. So sometimes we just have to go through that intensive care period before we can get into the sort of gradual ongoing healing that we're trying to get to.
Mm. And I like that phrase, temporary intensive care. I think people can relate to that phrase and understand what the process is. So I think that's really good. And Ian, I'm wondering, in your experience, do you think couples can navigate infidelity recovery alone, or is professional support essential? What do you think about that?
Well, again, from our experience, I think what I would say is that while some couples, they do manage to work through infidelity and they manage to do that perfectly independently, getting professional help, working with somebody that really understands how to work with these types of dynamics can significantly increase the chances of successful recovery. The emotions involved are so intense and the communication patterns just so damaged that having a neutral facilitator can really add value to that process and can almost be crucial for some people. So so yes, in some instances, but I think if we're really looking at maximizing the possibilities, having somebody experienced in this type of work can be really, really useful.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes. So, what do you think are the specific benefits counselling provides in these situations then?
Well, I think first it provides a safe space for both partners just to express their feelings without the conversation escalating into destructive circular arguments. Secondly, it can just help couples to understand the underlying issues that may have contributed to the vulnerability to infidelity. Though I think I really need to be clear, those factors don't excuse the betrayal, but they do go some way towards understanding why was there a vulnerability to the possibility in the first place.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's a really important clarification there, isn't there? Understanding contributing factors. It really isn't about blame shifting or excuse making. I think it's much more about strengthening the relationship's foundation. So it's hopefully more resilient going forward.
Exactly that, Wendy, exactly that. And I just think that counselling can help. It can help with a number of things. It can help with new communication skills. It can look at establishing healthy boundaries and just creating a structured approach to rebuilding intimacy, both emotional and physical intimacy.
Absolutely. And I'm just wondering whether therapeutic approaches can be helpful. I'm very much aware EMDR can be particularly effective for processing the trauma of discovery, while approaches like emotional focus therapy or the Gottman method, they provide specific frameworks for rebuilding the relationship. What do you think about that?
Um, I think that's absolutely right. I think different therapeutic approaches can really lend itself to different aspects of infidelity. EMDR, as you say, and clearly you're an EMDR therapist yourself, Wendy. EMDR can be a very evidence-based way of processing the trauma that we experience, so that we don't get triggered in quite the same way as we might of previously. And then there are other therapeutic approaches like EFT and Gottman, which can be really, really helpful as well. So a I think a blended approach to working with these issues can be really helpful sometimes.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. Thank you. Okay, so let's just talk about realistic timelines. What should couples expect in terms of the time it takes for the recovery process to happen, do you think?
Yeah, and a really, really good question, and a question that we get asked all the time. Um, I think what I would say is that the first stage is usually crisis management, and that can last for several months. And that's what we were talking earlier about, the sort of intensive care phase of things being discovered. It's about establishing safety. It's about stopping the bleeding of the relationship, if you will, and just beginning to process the immediate trauma.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I completely understand where you are with the analogy of that. And I believe this stage is often characterized uh, by intense emotions, probably very difficult conversations, and also the beginning of working on establishing new boundaries. And also, as we said earlier, the idea of having transparency, being measured. Um, I think that's what you're saying.
Absolutely, really good summary. So thank you so much for that,
Mm.
Wendy. I think the second phase is really the deep work that needs to be done. It's about understanding how the infidelity happened. It's about addressing the underlying relationship issues that's brought us to this place. And it's about starting to rebuild some form of connection. Um, and it's really difficult to talk about averages, but we might say that could well last sort of 12 to 18 months, and is usually the heaviest, the most intense therapeutic period of the work that you're going to be doing.
Mm. Okay, yeah, that's really good to clarify that, Ian. That's really, really good. And my understanding is, if, I don't know if you agree with me, but the final stage is integration and renewal. And this is more about creating a new relationship identity, one that acknowledges what happened, but isn't defined by it. And
Yeah,
I understand this can take about a year or more. Would that be fair to
yeah,
say?
and I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it, Wendy. Um, and yeah, it can very often take well over a year, sometimes 2 or 3 years to reach a point where you would say that genuine recovery has taken place. That's not to say you're necessarily going to be in therapy for that amount of time, or not continual therapy necessarily for that amount of time, but certainly this isn't necessarily going to be a quick fix either. And I think that's where what we need to try and get to. Um, And even though you may not be seeing a therapist for every session, there does need to be genuine commitment from both partners to the process that you're going through. And again, the emphasis here, it's not a quick fix. And I think anyone promising really, really rapid results isn't being open and honest and transparent about where the situation is at that time.
I totally agree with you there, Ian. Absolutely. And I think it's also important to add the idea that healing is not linear. What happens is the couple have good days and setbacks, they have triggers, but also breakthroughs. And this is just normal part of the process and to be expected, and to actually set that as a realistic expectation as well.
Absolutely, exactly that one day.
Mm.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, for couples who are perhaps in the midst of this process, are there any practical steps that can help them to rebuild trust day by day? Any thoughts on that, Ian?
I think, again, from our experience, one of the things that I would always emphasize is the importance of consistency, and that really can be key. The unfaithful partner needs to do what they say they'll do when they say they'll do it every single time. During this intensive period, consistency and to be able to start to rebuild a sense of honesty and trust is really, really important. And that sounds simple, but it's incredibly profound. Trust is rebuilt through countless small acts of reliability rather than grand gestures.
Mm. Okay, yeah, it's a really important point to make. And I'm also thinking, I don't know whether you agree with this, is creating new positive experiences together while honoring the pain of what's happened. But for example, this might mean establishing new rituals, trying activities you've never done before, or maybe even revisiting old ones, but with a fresh intention. And
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I really love the way you've put that, Wendy. And I think regular check-ins become absolutely essential. Just setting aside time every week to discuss how each partner is feeling about this recovery process that we're going through. What's working, what isn't working, and what support is actually needed. Do we need to be accessing a counsellor at this stage? Are there particular techniques or approaches that we've learned in therapy that we should be trying out? So that sort of regular check-in with one another is really, really important.
Very good point. I totally agree with that. And I think it's also important to emphasize that the betrayed partner also has some important work to do. So, obviously, while they're not responsible for the infidelity, they need to be aware to participate actively in their own healing. And this might mean a range of things. It might mean individual therapy or self-care practices, and gradually being able to be open enough to be vulnerable again and to take risks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think patience, especially self-patience, recovery takes time, and both partners need to be gentle with themselves, and with each other as they navigate what is an incredibly challenging and painful process.
Mm. Totally agree with that. Yes. Um, One practical tool I often recommend is the creation of new shared meaning. And what I mean by this is this might involve discussing what you want your new renewed relationship to look like, that sort of fresh new start type of thing. And to think about maybe the values that will guide it and also a plan or communication, how you'll both handle challenges differently going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think physical intimacy also needs really careful attention. The betrayed partner may really struggle. Remembering that this is they may well be experiencing a trauma type response to what they found out. Um, so they may be struggling with triggers, flashbacks, or simply a need to feel safe, uh, in that vulnerability of trying to create physical intimacy. And I think physical connection requires patience. It requires communication. And again, whereas there are people that navigate this in their own independent way, I think for some people, having professional guidance from somebody that understands how to work with this can increase the probability of success.
Mm. Okay, yeah, very interesting, Ian, very interesting. And I'm just wondering, we've talked a lot about successful recovery, but maybe we should also just acknowledge that not all relationships survive infidelity. So when might separation be a better or healthier choice?
Yeah, and that's a really important question, and I think one of the things that often happens within couples counseling is just looking at this very question. And I think if the unfaithful partner isn't willing to end the affair completely, if they refuse to be transparent, or they continue to minimize their actions, then rebuilding becomes so difficult. It almost becomes impossible. It's incredibly difficult to rebuild trust with someone who continues to act in a way that you perceive to be untrustworthy.
Mm. Very true, true there, Ian. And I'm also wondering if there's patterns of maybe multiple betrayals or ongoing deception, or if the infidelity is part of a broader abusive or manipulative behavior. What do you think about that?
Yeah, again, a really complicated question, but I think sometimes the betrayed partner will just realize or come to realize that whilst they can forgive, they can't forget in a way that allows the relationship to function in a healthy manner. And that's a valid choice too. So I think we have to just have an openness to there isn't one pre-decided outcome that we're aiming towards. It's more an exploration of where we can get to within this relationship and what's best for both parties to get to as well.
I totally agree with that. Yes. And I think just to add one point, it's also important to know that choosing to end a relationship after infidelity is definitely not a failure.
Mm.
It can be for some the most courageous and healthy choice for everyone involved, including the children who might be affected. So that's another variable that we have to consider. Um, and I'm just wondering for couples who are just beginning this particular journey, do you have a message of hope you can offer, Ian?
I, I think what I would say, Wendy, is whilst infidelity can be absolutely devastating, we have seen many couples emerge from that crisis with different but often stronger, more authentic relationships than they had before. The forced honesty, the deep communication, the intentional relationship building, they can all provide and create an absolutely profound sense of intimacy between two peoples. So there is hope if that's what both parties are genuinely committed to working towards.
Mm. Absolutely. And many couples tell me that while they wouldn't wish infidelity on anyone, they are grateful for the relationship they've built on the other side of it. It's tested, it's intentional, it's deeply valued because they knew how close they came to losing it.
Yeah, and I think the key is understanding what recovery is possible, um, or that recovery is possible. But it does require courage, it does require commitment. Um, and although people can navigate these steps on their own, I do think that very often professional support increases the likelihood for both partners.
Mm. Okay. And I think it's really important to emphasize that seeking help is definitely not a sign of weakness. It's much more a sign of your commitment to your relationship and also to your own well-being. And that's really important, I think. So finally, Ian, if someone has listened to this podcast and feels they might benefit from professional help with infidelity recovery, what should they do next?
So people are very welcome to reach out to us. We are Hope Therapy and Counselling Services. The website is www.hopefulminds.co.uk. That's www.hopefulminds.co.uk. We have a whole team of very, very experienced relationship counsellors within Hope. We can put people in touch with people who are experts in this particular field. We also have a variety of free resources as well that are on the website that people are very welcome to take a look at. Um, and you, Wendy, maybe you can just tell me a tiny little bit about the support that you offer to people that have gone through these really, really challenging times.
Absolutely. And my website address is called wendycastellino.com, which is after my name, obviously. And there's free resources on there. But people are very welcome just to put my name in and the website will come up and then you can just contact me via there. And if you have any questions about anything regarding mental health, your relationship, whether you feel as though you have been betrayed, we can have an informal conversation and you can see whether you think I'm the right fit to help you. So please contact me, wendycastellino.com. So I think it's really important just to emphasize to the listeners is, you don't have to navigate this alone. Whether your relationship survives infidelity or not, really important to say that healing is really possible and also support is available out there.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you everyone for listening to today's podcast.
So this has been the Talk Room. I'm Wendy alongside Ian, and we'll be back next time with another important topic in mental health and relationships. And if you actually have enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast. Thank you very much.